Good morning and welcome to the latest webinar from Wave Energy Scotland, or WES as it has become more commonly known. I'm Ian Forsyth, and today we're going to be looking at structural materials and manufacturing processes, which is the third project call from WES. With me are Managing Director of WES, Tim Hurst, and also Jonathan Hodges, who's the Research and Business Development Manager. Before we go any further though, just to make sure that you're aware, we'll be looking for questions from you. So anything you want to ask, please do. We'll be taking the questions towards the end of the webcast, but please submit them as we go along. You'll see a discussion box on the right-hand side of the video window that I'm in at the moment. All you have to do is type your question in there and hit enter. And as I say, we'll be dealing with them later on in the webcast. We've got some information to go through with you first of all to make sure that we cover everything for you. But first of all, let's just go over to Rona Campbell, who'll tell us a little bit more about this third project call.
Wave Energy Scotland, or WES, is a wholly owned subsidiary of Highlands and Islands Enterprise, and it's funded by the Scottish Government. WES is taking an innovative approach to supporting the commercialisation of the wave energy sector. What makes WES unique is its long-term commitment to the sector. WES is awarding contracts for innovative technology development activities that focus on proving technology and engineering quality, reducing risks and therefore the costs attached to commercialisation. WES is able to fund wave energy technology research and development projects up to 100% via a contract for R&D services known as pre-commercial procurement. Pre-commercial procurement enables public sector bodies to marry up innovative ideas and technology businesses. The aim is to provide innovative solutions to specific public sector challenges and needs. It also sits outside state aid regulations due to its pre-commercial nature and is more prescriptive in nature than grant funding. So take a look at the call guidance document for more details. Pre-commercial procurement is also more collaborative in nature than grant funding. Applications are open to any organisation registered in the European Union or European Free Trade Association. Wave Energy Scotland's first calls were for power take-off systems and novel wave energy converters. These programmes are now in progress. Further calls are planned over the next year. The emergence of advanced subsystems will be beneficial to device developers, and it's expected that, as the programme progresses, developers will have access to high-quality solutions which can be combined and integrated into wave energy converter or WEC designs. Wave Energy Scotland seeks to source and fund the development of key subsystems and components of wave energy technology, and then integrate these with the aim of achieving success for the wave energy sector. There is a strict requirement that all applicants entering the WES programme are willing to adopt the approach illustrated in this slide, and that successful applicants collaborate in the future to allow their subsystem and device solutions to be integrated together where practicable. Wave Energy Scotland's third call is focused on structural material and manufacturing processes, specifically focused on the construction of the WEC structure and prime mover.
So guys, great to have you with us. As Rona was saying there, WES is involved in a number of projects at the moment looking at subsystems and converter concepts, but can you tell us a little bit more about the projects that are currently on the go?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we've established quite a large technology programme now over the last 18 months. We've got around 25 projects and 80 organisations involved in that, so it's quite substantial. There's two current themes within the programme, one for devices, wave devices, and one for power takeoff systems. We've got 8 wave devices in the programme and 17 power takeoff technologies. So quite a large programme, and we're now going to supplement that with a materials call and potentially a future controls call coming towards the end of the year.
Okay, so it sounds like the projects that have been going on so far, they've been going well. But you've got this pre-commercial procurement model, that's what you're using just now. How does that fit into the long-term goals of WES, and particularly in terms of removing technical challenges for people?
Pre-commercial procurement is a particularly useful EU funding mechanism that allows public bodies like WES to fund research and development, but fund it at a high intervention level up to 100%. And that's particularly important at the moment because there is very little in the way of private investment in the wave sector. So using this model allows us to keep technology development going on within the wave sector, and it allows us to answer specific questions. We have particular challenges within the sector, technical challenges that we want addressed, and pre-commercial procurement allows us to specifically address those challenges. So it's a useful mechanism for us. It's useful for the contractors involved in that it gives a high level of intervention. The thing that goes alongside that is that it's competitive. It has to be competitive, and there is a requirement to share some of the knowledge that's been funded by the public body. So it swings and roundabouts, but it's a useful mechanism, and it allows us to de-risk the wave sector at this time.
So this particular call is around structural materials and manufacturing processes. Why is that so important at the moment?
Well, typically the structure and the prime mover of a wave energy converter can contribute around about 28% of the capital expenditure associated with the device. So it's a real key challenge for cost reduction. The structure and prime mover of a WEC, a wave energy converter, has to be able to absorb energy from the sea, but also it has to be able to survive those extreme storm events. So the balance of cost and survivability and performance is a really difficult balance to make. So materials and manufacturing process can have a key impact on this high component of CapEx. And we think tackling those high cost aspects is a really good way to bring about step change improvements in wave energy technology.
Right. So with it being such an important area, I think it's probably worth getting a little bit more background from Rona. So let's go back over to Rona and hear a bit more about the current call.
WES wishes to investigate whether it's possible to make a step change impact on the levelised cost of energy by constructing the structure and prime mover of WEC devices from alternative materials. Further information on these material areas and project requirements is provided in the competition specification and guidance document. The call will take the form of a 3-stage programme with applications limited to Stage 1. The objective of Programme Stage 1 is to procure engineering design studies which fully investigate the application of alternative materials to the structure and prime mover of a wave energy converter. WES is inviting proposals for projects in the material areas of hybrid structures using rotational moulding of polymers, elastomers and concretes. WES is also interested to receive proposals from project teams which can demonstrate that other alternative materials and associated manufacturing processes could provide a significant step change impact on the levelised cost of energy. WES does not deem it appropriate to fund research into novel materials and is concentrating on the application of existing promising materials. Therefore, projects applying to this process should be able to provide evidence that the material and associated manufacturing processes are technically ready for application in the near to medium term. Stages 2 and 3 of the programme will invite proposals for risk reduction testing and manufacturability demonstrations to further progress assessment of the material's attractiveness. Entry into each stage will be via a closed competition.
So WES has selected 3 material categories for the call. Can you give us a bit more detail on this?
Yeah, so in order to have a really strong impact on the wave energy sector, we believe that we need to be concentrating on removing the risk from technologies that can provide benefit to the sector in the short to medium term. So say in the next 3 to 5 years. So that means we're concentrating on materials that have already proven their worth in other sectors and can be transferred into the wave energy sector. We've selected some materials categories that we think provide real opportunity for cost reduction in the sector, but that still require to be fully assessed to really understand what their attractiveness is and what improvement they can provide. So all of these selections are based on a lot of industry research that we've carried out. But as Rona said, we're also interested in proposals from groups who can present other materials, perhaps completely new to the wave energy sector, that they can demonstrate have the opportunity for a really strong step change improvement in the sector.
How will the projects actually progress through those stages?
That's right. So stage 1 is going to be concentrating on engineering design studies, and those will be primarily analytical studies to really fully assess and demonstrate the attractiveness of these alternative materials to the wave energy converter structure. like the other Wave Energy Scotland calls, people with a successful stage 1 project will then transit into stage 2 through a closed competitive process. So stage 2 will then assess and test risk reduction testing of the key components and key structures on the wave energy converter that we spoke about earlier. And then stage 3 will carry out manufacturability demonstration at full scale to really complete that assessment of suitability of these materials for full-scale WECs.
Okay, let's find a bit more about the challenge and the expected activities in these projects from Rona.
The challenge in this call is to fully investigate the attractiveness of promising alternative materials and their associated manufacturing processes for application to the structure and prime mover of wave energy converters. Stage 1 engineering design studies are expected to include detailed design of wave energy converter structures, such as the prime mover body, articulated body connection points, and mooring connection points. As part of this process, projects should also consider the opportunities and limitations introduced by the application of the alternative material, including assessment of the impact of the expected mechanical loads and force regimes on the material under assessment, plus the manufacturability of the proposed wave energy converter design. The applicants should provide a detailed narrative of what their technology could reasonably be expected to deliver in terms of affordability and survivability, which have been identified as the target outcomes for this call. However, the other high-level target outcomes of availability and performance will also need to be considered. The overall budget for stage 1 of the competition is £3 million, with contracts of up to £250,000 and 12 months in duration available to applicants.
So, as we heard there, engineering design studies are going to be used to investigate specific parts of the structure. Why has WES chosen that approach?
We've chosen some specific parts of the wave energy converter that we think are the most challenging in terms of things like introducing forces and introducing stresses into the structure. These are the parts that where the complicated load paths are going to have to occur, and the places where design of reinforcement is quite challenging. So we've recommended a number of the parts of the wave energy converter that we think these challenges are most strong. We've not provided a completely exhaustive list of those parts of the structure because introduction of alternative materials is going to introduce opportunities and limitations which could change those structures in shape and size and design. So engineering design studies are going to have to cover all of the parts of the structure that are necessary to demonstrate attractiveness of those materials.
But I understand that you have provided some information on forces and stresses, is that right?
We have. We've provided some information on loads and stresses, primarily to give an idea of the typical loads and stresses that a typical wave energy converter at utility scale might experience. We're really interested to hear from companies that are new to the wave energy sector in collaboration with those with more experience. And so we've provided some guidelines to really show the magnitude of the challenge that these materials have to withstand.
So we saw on the slide during Rona's pre-record a little bit about the required outputs of the engineering design project. Can you summarise how the outcomes of those projects they feed into the overall objectives of WES?
Yes, we can. So the main objective of Wave Energy Scotland is to remove technical risk from the sector and hopefully improve the confidence in private investors and bring them back into the sector. So in order to be able to do that, we're looking to be able to demonstrate technologies and demonstrate their step change improvements in measures like affordability, survivability, performance and reliability. Engineering design studies are going to have to demonstrate full understanding of the attractiveness of these materials to the structure of the wave energy converter. And by doing so, they're going to understand those improvements in the measures that I just listed. So in order to understand their impact on the WES programme, we need to really understand the measures with which you can measure the success of a WEC.
Yeah, just moving slightly from that, I think one of the things that people will definitely be interested in is the funding that's available for the project. So can you tell us a bit more about what funding is actually available?
For this programme stage, we've allocated a total of £3 million, or up to £3 million, and there's a limit of around £250,000 per individual project, a maximum limit. So we could potentially fund up to 10 projects and the project duration is over 12 months.
Okay. Okay, so that's given us a fair amount of background for the project. It's obviously important as well to have a look at the timeline in terms of the process. So we're going to go over to Rona one final time to get her to take us through the timeline.
These are the key dates for this current call. Please take a careful note of them. This call will close at 1200 hours on the 8th of September 2016. Submissions should be made using the Public Contract Scotland Postbox facility only. Hard copies will not be accepted. Remember, you must be registered on PCS in order to access the call documents and complete the application process. Applicants should carefully review the supplier guides, especially the Postbox Supplier User Guide. The guidance documents provide information to users of the PCS system, and in particular, please pay particular attention to the instructions for the uploading and application submission process. Applicants should allow enough time to complete the uploading process on PCS. Applicants should note that as part of the evaluation process, they may be required to clarify aspects of their proposal and answer questions. Applicants must therefore ensure they are available on the dates indicated if required. It is very important that you follow the procedures on Public Contract Scotland. Applicants must use PCS for all questions regarding this call only and not generic inquiries about Wave Energy Scotland. Applicants must ensure they know how to use PCS, user guides are available and applicants can contact PCS directly. Please make sure you return all the documents required and do not send in extra materials not requested. Please use the checklist. Take note of the page limit restrictions presented in the competition guidance document. Particularly note the deadlines, as late applications will not be accepted. The system won't allow submissions to be dispatched after the deadline, even if uploaded before this. So again, please leave enough time to complete the process.
So, as Rona said there's a fairly fixed timescale in terms of what needs to be covered. There's full information about that in the documentation that's provided on the PCS website, but I think it's probably worth recapping on some of those details. But I should say before we go any further, this is the point just in a few minutes where we will be looking for questions from you. So please do submit your questions in the text box on the right hand side of the video window and ping them through to us, and then we'll be able to answer as many of those as we possibly can over the next 20 minutes or so. So we really do want to hear your questions. But let's just go back to that time scale that we've got. I think the first or the next event that's coming up is the Brokerage Event, which is on the 9th of August. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what's involved?
Okay, the Brokerage Event is exactly that. It's an event to try and broker relationships between potential applicants to the programme. So many of the projects that we have in our current programme are being run by consortiums, 2, 3, 4 organisations, and in order to meet the right partners for a potential project, this sort of event is an ideal opportunity to fill the capability gap that you may have in a project that you want to do. So that's what it's all about. During the day we will talk about the call. There'll be presentations about the call, about the challenges of materials within the wave energy sector, and there will be some discussion from the enterprise agencies and Scotland Development International that will give overseas organisations an idea of what sort of support they could have if they came to the UK. So that's the sort of agenda for the day, but primarily the focus is on potential applicants getting together to develop bids for the call itself. So if you've only got part of the capability and you're looking for someone else to partner with you to complete your project consortium, the Brokerage Event is the ideal opportunity. We've got a website set up for the event on B2 Match, so you can log on there and you can see who else is going, and you can see a little profile of their capabilities and perhaps what they're looking for in terms of other partners. So you can get a feel for who will be there and what the potential is for yourselves.
Okay. So if you do want to log on to that website that Tim just mentioned, there is actually a link underneath the video window that you can click when we're finished today, and that will take you straight through to there to get more information and also to register. The other important dates to bear in mind, just to recap, is that the clarifications on the process will close at midday on the 24th of August, and that submissions must be dispatched by, through PCS by the 8th of September. So those are the two key dates, the 24th of August and the let me go back, help me out there, it was the 9th of August was the brokerage event, the clarifications were the 24th,
Yep.
and submissions by the 8th of September. Yeah, okay. I nearly got confused because I was getting quite excited because we're starting to get questions through from the audience. So let's take the first question that we've got here. Is WEC developer involvement in any consortium recommended at stage 1, or could a WEC developer be added at stages 2 and 3 if stage 1 is successful?
Yes.
Right.
You can add a developer in at any stage you want. The key thing here is that the main or lead partner stays the same. As we move through the program stages, you might require different skills from your consortium. So you can add in partners, and partners can leave if that's required. I would say, having a web developer involved at an early stage is definitely a good idea to understand, the real challenges of what we're trying to do. They don't necessarily have to have a large role in the early stages, but as we move through the process, clearly the web developer will have a much larger role. Anything to add?
No, I think perhaps it's not necessary to just have one WEC developer in there.
True,
We're interested in the applicabilities and materials across the wave sector, so taking input from a range of different device developers who've worked on different machines in the past would perhaps be beneficial as well.
Okay. So another question we've had from the audience is around, is it expected that the proposal should present a case study involving a WEC, or could we, for example, just use the load case proposed by WES?
As I said earlier, the load case that we proposed by WES was intended as a guide to illustrate the magnitude of the materials challenge, not as a set of design constraints. So it would be more appropriate to carry out a case study that the project team then develops an understanding of their own loads expectations, which, as I said, may well be affected by their choice of material and the project, because that material choice will change the weight, the shape, the size, and perhaps even the operating style of the WEC. So it's really important to take account of your material choices when you're assessing the loads that you're designing for. So just to repeat, the loads that we've presented are a guide to just understand the landscape we're working in.
Right, okay. The next question from the audience is, what is the requirement for distribution of funding within the UK and the EU and outside the EU? So is there a specific requirement around that?
You do need to be from an EU or European Free Trade Association country. So if you're outside of that, you cannot participate in this call. However, if you are outside of that area, that doesn't mean you can't set up a business within the EU or within Scotland, for instance, as companies have done in previous calls, to allow yourself to be eligible. So
right.
If you're outside of the European Free Trade area in the EU, you will not be able to participate as a partner.
So just to cover off on the type of organisations that can apply, are there any restrictions around that or specific types of organisations?
There is no restrictions on the type of organisation. You can be very small companies, SMEs, large companies, research, public sector. There is no restriction on the type of company or organisation or entity, but you do have to have some financial credibility. So as part of this process, there is a financial questionnaire, and you have to demonstrate that you are financially stable enough to carry out this project. So you will have to have some sort of records and some sort of credibility and sort of past history to demonstrate that you are capable of doing the work that you say you're going to do. So it's any organisation, but you have to demonstrate your own credibility.
Okay. You kind of touched on this when we were talking about the brokerage event in relation to engaging with other WES project participants. Do you have any particular take on that or advice around that part of it?
I think we're keen to see collaboration and cooperation between as many of the partners within the programme as possible. We've already seen that within the current programme that we have. We do have regular WES seminars and conferences where we all get together, and it's very easy to see the synergies between the different technologies within the programme, and there already has been some sort of collaboration as a result of being in the same programme. So we would encourage that. And if you look at the diagram that came up in Rona's first insert, it shows the WES model and the idea of we're developing these subsystems and we want to integrate them together eventually to form a credible WEC system in the future.
Okay. And without getting into too much detail, because I know it can be a hugely technical subject, at the end of the process, who actually owns the intellectual property rights then of the...
Yeah, the intellectual property rights are the fine detail of that is described in the terms of reference that go along with this programme, which we'll be publishing on PCS next week. So if anybody's got any queries about that, I recommend that they look at those in detail. But in principle, arising intellectual property that's developed during the programme stays with the contractor. WES has a licence to it, but fundamentally it stays with the contractor. And what we want to see is contractors developing that technology, commercialising it and selling it openly in the market. So that's the overriding principle
right.
of the WES model.
Okay. But as always, I think that principle of making sure that you read with the guidance that's there
Absolutely.
on PCS is good
Yes.
advice for everything, yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Another question here. Is innovative steel material, such as stainless steel, to be considered in this call?
Like I said earlier, we've selected 3 areas that we think are presenting real opportunity for a cost reduction. But we're interested in hearing about applications which can demonstrate to us that they provide sufficient step change opportunity for cost reduction. So while we've chosen 3 that we think are most appropriate, we're interested in people demonstrating to us that their idea and their project and their material have that opportunity for cost reduction and improvement in all of the other measures of success in wave energy that the Wave Energy Scotland's intending to tackle.
Right. So in terms of the expected outputs from the engineering design studies stage, can you just recap on that? What are you actually expecting to come out of that?
Okay, so again, in the core guidance document, I think specifically in Table 1, there's lots of detail of the types of activities and the types of outputs that we're expecting from an engineering design study. So that is detailed design of the critical components of the WEC, and as we said earlier, we've recommended 3 areas of difficult technical design associated with the WECs, but we need to cover all of the ones that are appropriate to the project. We need full understanding of the loads that those materials and those components are going to have to withstand in operating conditions and survival conditions, and those are clearly going to impact the design I mentioned before. We want some understanding of how the material choices are going to affect performance. A key one is to understand the opportunity for cost reduction, specifically in levelized cost of energy that is available from introduction of an alternative material. We want to understand the risks that would be associated with that material or manufacturing process going into the latter stages of stage 2 and 3. And then talking about stage 2 and 3, we're going to need plans and expectations of the required testing and manufacturing demonstration that would be required if the project were to move on into stage 2 and stage 3.
Okay. Now, it would appear that the guidance documentation seems to be based around sort of numerical and analytical methods. How can a more practical approach be assessed?
Well, as I said, stage 1 engineering design studies are going to be primarily analytical design studies, and stage 2 and 3 are where we're going to get into risk reduction testing and manufacturability demonstrations. So the majority of the practical activity is in stage 2 and stage 3. However, one of the outputs of an engineering design study is going to be a real full understanding of the material properties of the material and associated manufacturing process that the project is working on. So in order to generate that understanding of material properties, it may be necessary to carry out some practical assessment. So there is a small amount of opportunity to carry out practical activity in stage 1.
Okay. And I suppose there's always it's almost the kind of elephant in the room where we've been talking about, EU countries, and we've got the whole Brexit thing going on just now. How is that likely to impact, particularly on countries that, companies or organisations from countries that are within the EU? Is that going to have an impact at all?
It's going to have no impact.
Right.
We're still in the EU for the next 2 years. And once we have let R&D contracts for this, we will honour those contracts. So whether we leave the EU partway through one of these contracts, or they're completed before or after, it doesn't matter. A contract is a contract, and we will honour those contracts. So
Okay.
for the purpose of this call, there is no effect.
Right. So regardless of what happens, the timescale is such that you're
Yes.
already started, and therefore it will continue.
Yeah,
Right.
correct.
Looking back at previous projects, you've had a fair spread from across, well, the EU and the UK. Is that something you're expecting with this one too?
Absolutely. We're very keen to have participants not only from different sectors, but from different countries across Europe. What we're trying to do is get the best technology that's available, and we will go to whatever sector or country provides the technology that we're looking for. So it's open across Europe, and we're aiming to get the best technology we can.
Okay. I think we've already covered this, but it's a question from the audience, so let's just make sure that we do make absolutely clear. Someone has asked if there's a meeting point for potential partners.
Well, I think that is covered by the Brokerage Event and the Brokerage website. I would recommend if you're looking for partners, start with the website, because there's already quite a lot of people registered there. Each of the organisations registered has got a little resume of their capability. So it's quite easy to see straight away if they're the sort of partner that you're looking for. So I would do that first, and if you find potential partners, register and come to the Brokerage Event on the 9th of August.
Okay. I think we've covered the audience questions that we've had so far. We were talking beforehand about the importance of PCS, so just to re-emphasise that. So is there any particular guidance you would give people in relation to PCS?
Yeah, there's we've had a lot of experience in the previous calls where people have started their application process in the final hours or even the final minutes of the open call period. So really must reiterate the need to complete the submission process in really good time. The system can become slightly slower towards the end of the call period with late applications. And so once again, must really stress that applications need to be submitted in good time. And the final point to make on there is that on the PCS website there is a dispatch button. And until you click the dispatch button, the application will not be forwarded on to Wave Energy Scotland, and we can't accept late applications. So you must click the dispatch button.
Okay, so that all-important dispatch button.
Yeah, and can I just say,
Yeah.
Jonathan's covered it there. We cannot accept late applications. It doesn't matter whether it's a minute or an hour or a day late. If it's not submitted at 12 o'clock, it cannot be considered.
Right. So it has to be bang on time. And just to reiterate, that deadline is the 8th of September at midday. Clarifications by midday on the 24th of September. I'm working backwards this time.
24th of August.
24th of August. Good grief, I'm really good with dates, aren't I? 24th of August, sorry, for the clarifications process, and the 9th of August for the brokerage event. So those are the 3 key dates. All of that information, however, is on PCS. You'll get all of those deadlines. There is a link to the PCS notification underneath the video window that we're sitting in at the moment, as well as the information to the brokerage event and a link to the WES website as well. And the slides that were used during Rona's pre-recorded elements, you can download those from below the video window too. So there's quite a lot of information. Don't just dash off when we're finished. We are nearly done, but all of that information, all of those links are immediately below us. Just click on them and that will take you through. That concludes the webcast for today. Thanks to both Tim and Jonathan for that information. There's a lot to take in, but I think the key thing is making sure that you do check PCS for the details and you do have a look at those links that we've supplied to you underneath the video. If you've asked a question and we haven't got round to answering it today, these will be covered via PCS. Indeed, any questions that are asked between now and the end of the clarification period, the answers will be posted publicly on PCS for everyone to see. So your questions will be answered, so do keep sending those in. But I would emphasise, not in our text box, via PCS this time round. We will also be editing this particular webcast so that you're able to watch again, which if there are parts of it that you want to scrub through and watch because you didn't quite pick up the detail, that will be available from next week. So there will be a full watch again of the webcast. Make sure you have a little look at that. We'll send out details. And as I said earlier, the main thing, all the key information, can't say it often enough, is on PCS. And to echo Jonathan and Tim's advice, make sure you read the instructions. And what was the name of the button?
Dispatch.
The dispatch button. Make sure you press that dispatch button before the deadline. That is really, really critical. So thank you very much for joining us. Tim and Jonathan, thanks very much as well.
Thank you.
And good luck with your proposals.